The first session, which was from 12 to 12:45, is on CI technology, landscape in 2047 for disaster and climate resilience in India. From 12:45 to 1:30 is digital innovation for resilience. Then from 2:30 to 3:15 is the technology and innovation for DRR. Ladies and gentlemen, do take out time and visit the colloquy sessions and the exhibitions on the first floor. Meanwhile, once again requesting everybody to be seated, be comfortable, and all mobile phones either switched off or put on to silent mode. We will begin with the proceedings of the first session very shortly, as soon as all the eminent dignitaries are here with us. Thank you once again for joining us in time. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a very warm welcome to all our guests who are present here with us for the Re-Summit 2047. We are awaiting the arrival of some eminent dignitaries to join us. As soon as they are here with us, we will go ahead with the proceedings of the summit. Meanwhile, we would request everyone to kindly be seated, be comfortable, and all mobile phones to be kindly switched off or put onto silent mode from now onwards, please. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we would also like to inform that on the first floor, from 12 o'clock onwards, we have organized the exhibition and the colloquy sessions. You all are kindly requested to visit the first floor for the sessions and the exhibitions in between the sessions and the tea, coffee and lunch breaks. Thank you very much indeed. If you have any queries, our staff is here with you to support you and answer your queries and your doubts. Kindly approach them. Once again, please be seated, be comfortable, and all mobile phones put on silent mode. Thank you. आज हमारे साथ उपस्थित सभी अतिथिगण का हम तहे दिल से हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं। री-समिट 2047 की शुरुआत कुछ ही समय में करेंगे। तब तक आप सभी से निवेदन है, कृपया अपने स्थान ग्रहण कर लें और मोबाइल फोन्स को स्विच ऑफ या साइलेंट मोड पर रखें। धन्यवाद। I would once again request everyone to kindly take their seats and all mobile phones to be put on to silent mode or switched off.
जैसे ही खत्म होगा तो टी ब्रेक इसके बाद नहीं है, इसके बाद पहले आदमी बुला लेंगे हम यहाँ पे।
नेम प्लेट्स को चेंज करवा।
हाँ हाँ ठीक है, ये लोग वहाँ बैठ जाएंगे, वो ऊपर आ जाएंगे, ठीक है, उसके बाद हमारा सेशन रहेगा टी ब्रेक, उसके बाद हाई टी होगा,
हाई टी
ठीक है। और इसमें मोमेंटो के लिए किसको रखा आपने?
सर फिर मैं अब आपसे फर्स्ट 2 करवा लेती हूँ।
ठीक है,
उसके बाद में वो जो आपने नाम दिया वो नीचे
हाँ, नाम आपने नोट कर लिया ना किसके, तो उनको थोड़ा सा मैं बता भी चुका हूँ, इसलिए थोड़ा सा
सर तो फिर पहले अब ये चंद्रशेखर जी आ रहे ये थे ना पहले मकवाना दे रहे थे।
हाँ, ठीक है,
इनकी जगह आप ये 2 को दे दीजिए।
हाँ, इनको
उनको दे दें और फिर कोई मैं नीचे
हाँ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, परफेक्ट, ठीक है।
नहीं तो फिर आपका एक नाम हट गया था ना, तो आप
नहीं, वो अब आप जो लास्ट से आपका होगा जो बोल देंगे, अब लास्ट में नहीं करना चाहिए, ठीक है। बहुत सीरियस इशू होगा, देन ओनली आई विल से, रात में नींद ही नहीं आ रही थी।
आई कैन इमेजिन सर।
बहुत ज़्यादा वो जब हो जाता है ना,
ज़्यादा हो जाता है।
जब मल्टी एजेंसी प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं तो चैलेंजेस ज़्यादा होते हैं कोऑर्डिनेशन के।
दैट इज अगर मेरा अर्ली मॉर्निंग होता है तो आई ट्राई टू स्लीप अर्ली, क्योंकि सुबह 3-4 बजे से नींद खुली जाती है, तो नींद पूरी ना हो तो पूरा दिन आप फ्रेश नहीं रह सकते।
ठीक है,
ऑल द बेस्ट।
आने वाले चीज के तब तक आप वो सब अनाउंसमेंट को बैकग्राउंड में करने लगेगा। ये बता दीजिए, एक आध बार टीजर वीडियो भी चलवा देंगे, और वो बता दीजिएगा कि वहाँ पे हमारे कार्यक्रम यहाँ पे भी है, वहाँ पे भी है।
मैं ऑलरेडी 2 बार बता चुकी हूँ।
हाँ, ठीक।
नहीं, वो मैंने अनाउंसमेंट शुरू करी ना तब उन्होंने बंद कर दिया, बट आई थिंक अभी ना चलाएं तो ठीक है, क्योंकि अचानक आएंगे तो सुनेगा नहीं, पर चलो वो बंद कर। Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome our guest of honor, Sri Krishna Honorable Member, NGMA, Government of India. Very warm welcome to you, sir. I also have the proud privilege of inviting on stage Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Secretary HRD, DSP, Government of India. And by Dr. Rodrigo H. Hudson, WHO. I invite Mr. Dennis Curry, Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP India. Let's put our hands together to welcome sir. I invite Shri Ashish Sinhaji, Joint Secretary G20 MEA, Government of India. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Shri Taj Hassan, Executive Director NIDM. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We have on the stage with us Professor Anil K. Gupta, HOD ECDRM NIDM. A warm welcome to you. I also invite Dr. Ashish Chaturvedi, Head Environment, Energy and Resilience, UNDP India. Once again requesting everyone to be seated, all mobile phones to be put onto silent mode, the exit doors to be closed, please. Thank you. Namaskar and good morning. Esteemed dignitaries on the dais, our special invitees, distinguished delegates, policy makers, senior level professionals and officials from the government, UN agencies, financing institutions, INGOs and NGOs, international and national level experts, and academicians, thinkers, scholars, respected members of the press and media, ladies and gentlemen. I have the proud privilege today in welcoming you all to the launch session of ReSummit 2047, Resilience and Sustainability Summit, Vision 2047, on the topic of science, policy planning, practice, interface for DRR in the changing climate, which is being organized by the National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM, in collaboration with Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and in partnership with United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and GIZ India, in consonance with Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and G20 presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, this summit is one of the rare occasions where all the eminent speakers as well as the participants are high-level experts in the area of disaster management and climate change. From this summit, a consortium will be formed and will provide a platform for the experts to work together in the future. विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग भारत सरकार UNDP एवं GIZ इंडिया के सहयोग से राष्ट्रीय आपदा प्रबंधन संस्थान NIDM द्वारा आयोजित जलवायु और आपदा संकट से संरक्षा, तन्यता व संवहनीयता की ओर शिखर सम्मेलन ReSummit 2047 के आह्वान सत्र में आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत है। भारत देश स्वतंत्रता के 75वें वर्ष में आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव मना रहा है। आत्मनिर्भर भारत के लिए अपनी प्रतिबद्धताओं के साथ-साथ G20 की अध्यक्षता की भी पुष्टि की गई है एवं यह वर्तमान शिखर सम्मेलन के परिणाम इन चर्चाओं और प्रतिबद्धता के लिए महत्वपूर्ण होंगे। यह शिखर सम्मेलन उन दुर्लभ अवसरों में से एक है जहां सभी प्रतिष्ठित वक्ताओं के साथ-साथ सभी प्रतिभागी आपदा प्रबंधन और जलवायु परिवर्तन के क्षेत्रों में उच्च स्तरीय विशेषज्ञ हैं। इस शिखर सम्मेलन में एक संघ का गठन होगा और भविष्य में सभी विशेषज्ञों को एक साथ काम करने के लिए एक मंच प्रदान करेगा। और शुरुआत में हमारे महान राष्ट्र के प्रति सम्मान के रूप में आप सभी से अनुरोध है, कृपया राष्ट्रगान के लिए खड़े हो जाएं। We request everyone to kindly rise for the national anthem. Thank you. You may kindly take your seats. And ladies and gentlemen, today the support of the distinguished dignitaries present is an inspiration for all of us. As a mark of respect, we wish to welcome and honor by presenting a small token of gratitude. आज उपस्थित विशेष गणमान्य अधिकारीगण का समर्थन हम सभी के लिए एक प्रेरणा है और सम्मान के प्रतीक के रूप में स्मृति चिन्ह भेंट कर विशेष गणमान्य अधिकारीगण का स्वागत और सम्मान करना चाहेंगे। निवेदन करूंगी प्रोफेसर अनिल गुप्ता NIDM से कि स्वागत और सम्मान करें। हमारे मुख्य अतिथि श्री कृष्णा वत्सा जी का, मेंबर NDM में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया। A very warm welcome to you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Shri Krishna S. Vatsaji. I would request Professor Gupta to do the honors of welcoming Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Secretary SERB, DST, Government of India. Warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you, sir, for doing the honors. May I now request and invite Mr. Surendra Thakur, JD NIDM, to kindly welcome and honor Dr. Rico H. Offin, WHO representative to India. I would request you, sir, also welcome and honor Mr. Dennis Curry, Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP India. Thank you very much indeed, sir. May I now invite Mr. Kirtiman Awasthi to kindly do the honors of welcoming Shri Ashish Sinha ji, Joint Secretary G20 MEA, Government of India. I would request Mr. Professor Anil Gupta to do the honors. Professor Gupta to welcome Shri Ashish Sinha ji. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome him. I would request you, sir, to welcome Mr. Taj Hassan, ED NIDM. Warm welcome, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, as is customary, we begin every auspicious occasion by lighting the ceremonial lamp and invoking the gods and goddesses. Today we invoke Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, seeking her blessings for the success of our endeavors. I would now request our eminent dignitaries on the dais to kindly do the honors of lighting the ceremonial lamp and formally inaugurating the summit. I would also like to invite for the lamp lighting Dr. Shombi Sharp, UN President Coordinator. I request you, sir, to kindly join on the stage for the lamp lighting. And let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, on the ceremonial inauguration of REIS Summit 2047. I would also like to invite Mr. Kirtiman Awasthi to come and to the lamp lighting. Dr. Nisha to kindly join for the lamp lighting. Inaugurating REIS Summit 2047. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM, was constituted under the Act of Parliament with a vision to play the role of a premier institute for capacity management and disaster risk reduction. The Institute's vision is to create a disaster-resilient India by building the capacity at all levels for disaster prevention and preparedness. And may I now invite Professor Anil K. Gupta, HOD ECDRM NIDM, to kindly begin the proceedings of the summit with his welcome address. Please put your hands together to welcome him.
Namaste. सुस्वागतम। आज इस 3 दिवसीय शिखर सम्मेलन में, जिसका कि अंग्रेजी में नाम रेजिलियंस एंड सस्टेनेबिलिटी समिट विजन 2047 है, मैं आप सबका राष्ट्रीय आपदा प्रबंधन संस्थान, विज्ञान एवं प्रौद्योगिकी मंत्रालय और सहयोगी UNDP, GIZ और बाकी सब संस्थानों की तरफ से बहुत बहुत स्वागत करता हूं. It is a privilege for all of us that after almost 3 years of big disastrous challenge, we have started again our activities, our initiatives with full swing. And today's program is one of the examples. This program was in thought process for almost past 2 years, or even more than 2 years, but it could not take place because of several challenges. But finally, we have been able to organize this program with the support of all the key players, all the key institutions. First of all, my sincere thanks on behalf of myself and on behalf of the entire organizing team. This Shikhar Sammelan is a unique assemblage. It's a unique assemblage in certain terms, because when we talk about disaster management, we talk about multidisciplinarity, we talk about transdisciplinarity, and we also talk about interdisciplinarity. So all the sectors play significant roles in disaster management, and therefore all the disciplines are required to have detailed discussions. But however, it is a long-term process, and therefore this kind of platforms where experts, institutions, the government organizations, scientists and international agencies gather to develop consortium. We cannot assure that in each of the session of 1.5 years we can have the discussion at length, but at least we can flag out the key context of the challenges, and key strategies can be identified to work in a long-term basis. So this initiative, where in 3 days, for this 3 days program, more than 450 delegates have registered, and they will be attending different sessions. So there are some people who will be throughout the program, but there will be some people, more than 150 experts who are the speakers and other resource persons in different categories in different sessions. So they may be coming for some specific sessions, they may be coming, they may be going. And alongside this hall number 5, which is a plenary hall, there is an exposition where 9 technical sessions are being organized, along with certain specific Parisamvad colloquial sessions on very important key issues of disaster risk reduction and climate resilience. This program has more than 45 partners. Some of the partners are from across the country, I would say that from outside the country, international agencies. They are partnering in various capacities: technical partners, knowledge partners, academic partners, research partners, and several others. The program will be addressed by eminent experts from international agencies also, including the Asia Pacific Chief of UNDRR, several other institutions, academia, and government officials. One of the key objectives of this initiative of the today is basically to identify the, some kind of a context or to evolve a framework for developing the Vision 2047. Because when we talk about the futuristic vision, lot of uncertainties are also involved. We are not sure that what kind of environment, what kind of technology, what kind of systems we are going to have in 2047. We can have some ideas. Looking into those ideas, we are trying to peep into the future and to see how technology is going to help us, how the scientific initiatives are going to be utilized more, and how do we popularize those in local level initiatives. Besides, what these technological challenges will create new challenge. So I think that is also important aspect, alongside the societal changes that we are perceiving in future. So this also relates with Honorable Prime Minister's 10-point agenda on disaster risk management, which he gave while he inaugurated this 7th ASEAN Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction that took place in New Delhi, where the item 1, the all sectors to imbibe the principles of disaster risk management, is one of the very important aspect. and that actually provides all key dimensions of the mainstreaming disaster risk reduction into developmental process. So the 3 days program have very important topics covered as technical sessions, plenary sessions, and we have keynote speeches on all the 3 by eminent experts who are a blend of subject expertise, administration, as well as they having the ground understanding of disaster risk reduction discipline. So at ground, I'm really very thankful to all the dignitaries on the dais and to the audience, to people from various institutions who have joined here. I would try to, I welcome all the dignitaries on dais. Today's chairperson of the inaugural session, Shri Krishnavatsji, NDMA, who is guiding us for this entire process of preparing this Resilience Summit also, and NDMA being the apex body of Government of India on guiding all the initiatives, all the framework of disaster risk reduction, and their guidelines are basically some kind of a policy framework on which we are trying to achieve the goal set by Honorable Prime Minister and various other international and national policy domains. We also welcome the WHO chief. We welcome the UNDP chief in India, who have kindly graced this occasion, and they would be addressing. We are very happy that the India's presidency in G20 is being marked globally, and it is not only a matter of celebration, but it is also a great opportunity. And G20 has recently constituted a special working group on DR and resilience. We are very happy that the Joint Secretary of G20 is also here, and he would be sharing the thought process of G20 framework with reference to the disaster risk reduction and resilience. Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Secretary SERB and Senior Advisor DST, has been the source of inspiration, and this initiative has started under the major project supported by Department of Science and Technology. Department of Science and Technology has been one of the major supporters of National Institute of Disaster Management on promoting science and research-based advancement in disaster risk reduction and also related capacity building interventions, which is DST is implementing 2 major missions of climate change, National Action Plan on Climate Change. One is the strategic knowledge on climate change, and under that the support is there with to NIDM, and under that this initiative is being undertaken. This program has been conceived and being organized with support of United Nations Development Program and the technical partnership with GIZ Germany India office. So that is also a privilege that the 2 partners which were taking very sincere interest and efforts in disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation are with us in organizing this very important summit, and not only for this summit but on a long-term basis cooperating with NIDM and various other institutions working in disaster risk management. We are very happy, and we are graced by the presence of our Executive Director, Mr. Taj Hassan, who has always been supporting and guiding us in undertaking the strategic as well as various capacity building endeavors in the country, and to improve the quality and also the deliveries to cover all the parts of the country. We also welcome all the experts who are off the dais, because here not only the experts on dais, but experts of the dais are also equally important, having long experience working in various sectors, and various other experts who will be joining here from various parts of the country, various organizations, to grace various sessions. I welcome all of them. I also welcome the speakers and resource persons of the Parisamvad session, and all the people who have supported in planning and organizing this workshop. Once again, I am very thankful to you and welcome you all at this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those warm words of welcome and for setting the context for Summit 2047. Once again, a warm welcome to each one of you present here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, UNDP has worked in India since the year 1951 in almost all areas of human development, from systems and institutional strengthening to inclusive growth and sustainable livelihoods, as well as sustainable energy, environment and resilience. UNDP's programs continue to fully integrate a global vision for catalytic change with India's national priorities. And we have the privilege that present here with us today is Mr. Dennis Curry, Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP India, and may I invite you, sir, to kindly address the August House present here. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Dennis Curry.
Distinguished panelists, esteemed guests and colleagues, good morning. It's a distinct pleasure to be with you here today. The COVID pandemic tested the resilience of governments, institutions and communities all over the world. However, through concerted action, scientific inputs, vaccine delivery mechanisms and a strong push towards protecting the most vulnerable, India's pandemic recovery has many lessons for the international community. And just as the world was grappling with the complexities of a post-pandemic pandemic era, the next crisis due to the war in Ukraine was upon us. The disruptions in global supply chains, the spiraling prices of food grains, and the energy crisis have truly brought to the centre stage the need for a renewed dialogue on the ideas of resilience. The agenda of the three-day summit organised by the National Institute of Disaster Management, UNDP, GIZ and other partner agencies takes into cognizance all these emerging priorities. India assuming the presidency of the G20 is of significance in this backdrop. The efforts being taken by India to steer and initiate a dialogue with the major economies around these complex issues should be watched closely, as they will have lessons for all the world. The setting up of a specific working group on disaster risk reduction is also testimony to India's leadership to encourage collective work by the G20 and to exchange best practices on disaster risk reduction. The other sessions in the agenda also represent further national and international priorities, such as the focus on loss and damage, and governance and finance and infrastructure resilience. UNDP in India and globally has been offering consistent technical and operational support to the National Disaster Management Authority. The resource allocation made under the 15th Finance Commission for Disaster Management in the country is a bold and visionary development which speaks volumes of the seriousness attached by the Government of India to the issue of resilience building. Since its inception in 2019, UNDP has been a key technical partner to the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, one of the Government of India's flagship initiatives. As part of this support, we have helped CDRI develop its flagship report on infrastructure resilience, disasters and climate resilient infrastructure, and this will be launched during India's G20 presidency this year. UNDP has also supported the CDRI in the coordination and the conceptualization of the Infrastructure for Resilient Island States initiative, as well as establishing its International Trust Fund, the Infrastructure Resilience Accelerator Fund, which was formally launched during COP27, and that fund has an ambition to raise 50 million over the next 5 years, $50 million US over the next 5 years. To close this morning, how India addresses the challenges of creating a disaster and climate resilient development pathway holds huge significance. India is a large country, both
holds the presidency of G20 from 1st of December 2022 to 30th of November 2023. For India, the G20 presidency November 2023. For India, the G20 presidency also marks the beginning of Amrit Kal, the 25-year period beginning from the 75th anniversary of its independence on 15th August 2022, leading up to the centenary of its independence towards a futuristic, prosperous, inclusive and developed society distinguished by a human-centric approach at its core. And may I now invite Shri Ashish Sinha, Joint Secretary G20, MEA, Government of India, to throw some more light on the G20 presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome.
Thank you very much. Shri Krishna Vatsa ji, member NDMA, ED NIDM, Professor Gupta, dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning, all protocols observed. Thank you for having me here. It's a great beginning of what our Prime Minister announced, our Amrit Kal, from celebrating 75th anniversary of India's independence leading up to the centenary. So it's a good time to have a vision for 2047 about the resilience and sustainability. This is being done at a time which is which offers us a lot of opportunities, and at the same time we see a lot of challenges in the world. We have almost left a pandemic behind us, hopefully, and we face geopolitical stress in Europe. So this is certain opportunities, certain challenges. Mixed both comes with India's G20 presidency, both opportunities and challenges. We have taken over this presidency at a time when the world is fractured and is looking for a leadership of the important coalition in form of G20, and the G20 looks up to India for its presidency, setting the agenda, setting the priority to guide and steer the world towards better times, away from pandemic, away from geopolitical stress, towards the development, towards resilience, towards sustainability. In this regard, let me just inform you that during our presidency, our Prime Minister has decided and is guiding us that this presidency should not just be a diplomatic exercise, it should not just be a series of meetings of diplomats from important countries, but it should go far and wide. People should be involved. It should be whole of government approach. All the government agencies, research institutions, universities, and people at large should be involved. And that is why over 200 meetings of G20 would take place in about 55 cities of India. So practically all the states, all the union territories, and within the state going beyond the capital cities to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So it's a kind of Jan Andolan that our Prime Minister envisages during our presidency. We have also utilized the opportunity of our presidency to introduce a new working group. G20 is structured in form of working groups. For example, health, agriculture, energy, climate, etc. So during our presidency, we have proposed and set up a new working group on disaster risk reduction. And we've had overwhelming support from all the countries to set up this group. There were initial hiccups as to why a new group, why it couldn't be discussed within the existing framework of climate and environment sustainability, so on and so forth. And we were able to convince and take on board everyone as to why we need a dedicated and separate working group. We got support from UNDRR, UNDP, India, and several of our institutions in shaping this narrative and getting everyone on board. Based on our experience of past decade or so, wherein we have invested as a country a lot in disaster resilience, in terms of institutions, in terms of funding, in terms of real action on the ground, also in terms of reaching out to our neighboring countries and being one of the best prepared country for should an eventuality takes place. So with that strong position of strength, we were able to convince the world that DRR should have a personality of its own. It should no more be considered a subset of climate or environment. It goes beyond that. I mean, it deals with hydrometeorological situations. It requires a focused approach. During our presidency, we have prioritized an NDMA being the lead organization to guide this working group throughout the presidency. Some of the priorities are early warning system across the world. You know, that's very, very important to really save the lives and livelihoods. We've seen how certain disasters have devastated the communities, the economies, the infrastructure. We've recently seen in Joshimath how we are actually undergoing that trauma as to how certain possibilities of disaster can devastate the community altogether. All we can do is to remain better prepared. All we can do is to have better coordination among top countries of the world in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of experience sharing, in terms of institutional support, in terms of dedicated financial provisioning for disaster risk, in terms of creating disaster resilience infrastructure. In the eventuality of a disaster, say an earthquake, and earthquake reminds me, first time I met Sri Krishna Vatsaji in Nepal when a massive earthquake struck Nepal in 2015. Now, in the eventuality of an earthquake, if a hospital building is also damaged or roads are damaged, the infrastructure is not resilient enough, then you have double jeopardy or multiple jeopardies. Therefore, the requirement for a resilient infrastructure. So all these augured well to have a separate dedicated working group. Now we have launched, there are meetings planned, and it will be culminated into the leaders' declaration. It will form an important part there. And if you see, and I hope you are all engaged with our presidency and presidency priorities and the meetings happening, the priorities that we have set, if we see very closely, disaster resilience cuts across all priorities. Our priorities are life, which is lifestyle for environment, green development and growth, accelerating achievement of SDGs. Now we all know that DRR forms a very important part of SDG, and Sendai framework is one of the 4 or 5 elements of Agenda 2030. So all of our priorities have some way or the other the element of resilience, element of sustainability, and therefore element of disaster risk reduction. So it cuts across the priorities, and we take the rightful leadership of the world in bringing them together to discuss this. We will need a lot of institutional support, and in your capacity as an institution, as a partner institution of NIDM, and as individual researcher, you're free to feed your input in the system as to how should we, anything which can enrich our narrative, anything which can enrich the discussion and dialogue. G20 is a very collaborative space. It's not competitive. We are not trying to outsmart anyone, but we are trying to use all the smartness pooled together for everyone's benefit. So please feel free to feed your inputs through NDMA or directly to G20 Secretariat, and we'll make sure that somewhere or the other your voice is heard, your ideas are fed into the overall narrative. We also will reach out to various institutions. We have a University Connect program, and we are reaching out to different universities for students to be aware and their ideas, and youth who will, at the Amrit Kal, they will, the youth of today will have, we want to give them an India with a lot of strength, with a lot of resources, and very well placed vis-a-vis the world community. So we hope to be able to do that, a big push during our presidency. I'll keenly look forward to knowing the proceedings in these 3 days of your this summit, and I wish all the speakers, organizers, and participants of the summit good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, WHO developed the Health Emergency and Disaster Risk Management Framework, Health EDRM, to provide ministries of health and other stakeholders with an overview of monitoring and evaluation. Dr. Rodrigo H. Orphan joined WHO India as WHO representative beginning July 2020. His extensive experience and expertise covers critical issues impacting health of people in the 11 member countries, including India. And may I now request you, sir, to kindly share your views with the August House. And ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome.
Good morning, namaste. Shri Krishna Vatsa, member NDMA, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Secretary, SERBDST, Shri Ashish Sinha, Joint Secretary G20 from MEA, Mr. Taj Sahan, Executive Director NIDM, Professor Anil Gupta, of course, and Mr. Dennis Curry, Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP, representatives from government, partner agencies, as you can see, there are very many, experts, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with you. This topic is very close to my heart, having been the emergency director for the Southeast Asia region for quite some time before coming to this position. Having been in India now, in fact, tomorrow will be 18 years. So, may hindi tora, so sorry, I cannot deliver the whole speech in Hindi. It is my privilege to be in your midst, and it's like a coming together, like the stars are aligning, that such a gathering to discuss resilience in a multi-sectoral way has happened. And of course, the timing is amazing because it is a centenary year of India's independence. This workshop is geared for that, for 2047, and reaffirms the nation's commitment towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India, but an India that is global with the G20 presidency. As discussed by Shri Sinha, it's a multitude of very different topics on which India will place itself at the global stage, including areas of finance, climate change, disaster risk reduction, and of course the area close to my heart and everyone's should be is health. It aims to be inclusive, equitable, and sustainable, and of course the G20, a concrete one with roadmaps and action frameworks for which the world can take from. And before anything else, I would like to applaud this effort, the Government of India's Ministry of Home Affairs, Health and Family Welfare, as well as the Department of Science and Technology, National Institute of Disaster Management, and DMA, for this initiative, which places intersectoral collaboration and being visionary in its planning at its core. Climate change, after the COVID pandemic, from which we all have come out, and which we all need to collectively recover from, I think climate change is the next big emergency, the slow emergency that we all need to come together for. It impacts all sectors, and it is more visible now more than ever. The world is experiencing more heat and cold waves, more intense and frequent cyclones, droughts, unusual patterns of rains and floods. But at the heart of all of this, it's people and their health. As per the 2022 report by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, rising sea levels and changing monsoon patterns have led to a loss of 16% in India's per capita GDP since 1991. What remains invisible are the health impacts of climate change, such that at present, less than 1% of multilateral climate finance has been specifically for health. Factors destabilizing climate, the balance of the environment, also contribute directly to poor health. Air pollutants, which lead to ill health, and greenhouse gases, which cause climate change, are emitted from many of the same sectors, including energy, housing, transport, agriculture, and even health. climate change can also create the conditions for new outbreaks or even new viruses. It has a direct impact on health through diseases that are climate sensitive, such as vector-borne diseases, and indirectly through food systems, creating food insecurity and malnutrition. The health impacts of climate change could be considerably reduced by demonstrated interventions in building climate-resilient health systems, including climate-resilient health facilities, and through sectors which include health such as water, sanitation, food systems, and disaster risk reduction. There is what we call the safe and green hospital. When I started in emergency management and disaster risk reduction for health, it was always just a safe health facility, one that withstands an earthquake, designed to withstand floods, and that you see all over the region in South Asia. But now more and more, it has to be environmentally friendly too. India has undertaken so many notable actions, whether it's the International Solar Alliance, reaching more than 90 million women through Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, to replace biomass gases and adopt LPG. The National Program on Climate Change and Human Health was started by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in NCDC. And to achieve 20 to 30% reduction in particulate matter by 2024, the National Clean Air Program is being implemented in 131 cities. The Jal Jeevan Mission also aims to provide functional household tap connection to every rural household by 2024. Municipal authorities and other subnational authorities are critical actors in reducing carbon emissions and improving health and increasing resilience. So this is another group that we need to work with. Cities like Ahmedabad, Pune, Surat, Nagpur, Bangalore are adopting concrete steps to drive city-level action to improve air quality. And WHO is a proud partner in many of these initiatives. Recently, we are also working with Jal Jeevan Mission to look at the health impacts of all of these initiatives. There is a need to foster a movement to create societies focused on well-being, and urgent actions are needed to keep humans and our planet healthy. I think it's for people ourselves to think that everything is connected. What we do actually impacts adversely or positively the planet and other people. This workshop has been envisaged at an opportune moment when there is a greater need for awareness around climate literacy and human health and its impact to human health. And to rethink, I think it's an important part, to rethink a health system that is both climate resilient and sustainable. At the welcome, it was announced that it should be also future-looking. Together, we can take this opportunity to attempt to answer a few questions. And we may not have the answers in this meeting, but we have to keep asking the question and improve our answers. How can we have an efficient disease surveillance system that links with meteorology data and can predict outbreaks or issue early warnings? How can we ensure that service delivery through primary health centers or health and wellness centers remain functional during adverse climate conditions? How can we sustain efforts in making hospitals, health facilities, laboratories to withstand floods or other shocks caused by climate change? More importantly, how can we have a health system that is not a contributor to climate change? Globally, the health sector is the 5th largest contributor to environmental pollution. And together with all of that, still achieve universal health coverage and the Sustainable Development Goals. How do we harness and improve capability of all stakeholders in understanding the impact of climate change and designing ways to minimize the impact through risk reduction measures? The solutions to the above probably already exist, and that's why this forum is very important. And all we need is to understand, collect, analyze, and probably just adopt to our local systems. Many of the answers, usually I will always be asked, oh, what do other countries do? But to me, the answer is usually, what do other states do? What does the other district do? Many of the answers are already in India. It's just bringing it together. And we are committed to support the government in its fight to address health impact of climate change, making a disaster-resilient health system and its inputs to this. India is moving firmly towards universal health coverage, and this is the right time to invest in climate-resistant health infrastructure. With the PM Abhim, there will be a district hospital in every district. There will be a laboratory in every district. So this is an opportunity. India may have its vulnerabilities, but it also has its capacities. And what is planned or contributed to the G20, India will have something to say to the world. I always say a prepared India is a prepared world. Many of the lessons learned from the response to the COVID pandemic, many other countries are learning. And so whether it's a pandemic or a big disaster, India will be a huge partner for the world. I'm glad that stakeholders are committing to concrete actions today for a healthier tomorrow. My best wishes for a fruitful deliberation. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that insightful address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege in inviting Shri Taj Hassan, Executive Director, NIDM, for kindly addressing the August House. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome him.
Chief guest of the function, Dr. Krishna Vath, Deputy Resident Representative, Mr. Dennis Curry, Secretary, SCRB, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Ashish Sinha, JS, MEA, Mr. Offrin, Representative of WHO to India, other dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, friends from media. Today we have assembled here this is a 3 days function in which we would be deliberating on various important issues on DRR. I welcome all of you, various delegates, representative of NGOs, officials from all over the country, experts, and everyone to this function. We would be deliberating upon various issues on DRR, climate issues, issues related to present-day challenges we have in terms of DRR. NIDM as an organization is primarily working on capacity building. Basically, our job is to train the people, the trainer of various institutions on various aspects of DRR. We have a wide university and institution network that's called Indian University and Institution Network on DRR. More than 200 universities are with us. We also conduct research. Whenever major disasters take place, our team goes and conduct in-depth study. We come out with the papers for the help of the practitioners. Our challenges is that we have to actually empower the various training institutions all over the country. Each state has got the ATIs, that's called Administrative Training Institutes, training institutes of Forest Department, training institutes of Police Department, and various other training institutes. Because at national level, NIDM being a small organization cannot cater to the requirement of the training of the whole officials and other stakeholders. So we are working on empowering ATIs, empowering other institutes, and so that we can act as a force multiplier. For this purpose only, we also made this network. Presently, it's a very active network. We are going to introduce research scholarship under this banner. We would be giving research projects to students, and would be funding them as a UGC fellowship, the same amount, and that would help us creating good research work on the relevant topics. The main purpose of any deliberation, any thinking, any workshop is actually to give the help to the practitioner. We discuss as a intellectual forum at various research-based projects, but actually it is the practitioners the field officials, the district magistrate, the SPs, the patwaris, the Tehsildar. It is they who ensure, enforce on ground. So the main purpose is that whatever we discuss, we come out, there should be some actionable output. I have been a field officer all through my life. For last 1 year I am here. So I see what field officers require. And they require very crisp outcome of any study so that they can act upon. So I would hope and I believe that this whole 3-day session on various issues in which we already have policy, clear policies on which we have challenges related to implementation. We would deliberate on that, we would dwell upon that, and we come out with some concrete suggestions, kind of to-do list, so that the field officials are benefited. I hope this whole 3 days deliberation will come out with the region-specific, sectoral-specific, and strategic intervention based on science and technology and other aspects, so that the actual outcome, our time investment goes for the empowering the field officials. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those words of motivation. And ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that the Science and Engineering Research Board, SERB, is a statutory body established through an Act of Parliament 2008. The mandate is to support basic research in emerging areas of science and engineering. And today, we have the privilege of having with us Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Secretary SERB, DST, Government of India. And please join me in welcoming Dr. Akhilesh Gupta for his address.
The chief guest of today's event, Shri Krishna Vasta, the Gangal NDMA, all the distinguished dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, a very good morning to all of you, and I join Professor Anil Gupta in welcoming all of you to this important deliberations that are going to take place next 3 days. Climate change is, and really I recall that, 20 years back on this very hall, I had organized the International Conference on Climate Change and Disaster Management. 20 years back, we asked the same question, but I recall an anecdote. I'd like to share that anecdote. Einstein was setting the question takers for his students. So he asked his secretary that, why don't you give the same question which we gave last year? The secretary came and said, sir, these students are very smart. They know what was the answer last time, and so if you give the question, same question, they will be very smart to answer. Then Einstein said, the questions are same, but answer has now changed in 1 year. So it is the same question that we asked 20 years back. The answer is different today. And that exactly is the reason that we keep deliberating these issues again and again. Is that climate change issue anything different that we have been debating over decades? Climate change is taking place naturally. And if you really see today, like for example, the average temperature of the earth is something around 15.5 degrees centigrade. This is the average temperature. So the very existence of humans on this earth is because the temperature has been 15.5 degrees centigrade average. And that's why there is no evidence of humanity in any other planet, because temperatures are quite different there. If you go back several thousand years back, you can, when there was a ice age, the temperature, average temperature went down to 0 degree and minus 20 degree, in that range. And so humanity did not exist, because humans need temperature in a particular range. You will not able to withstand temperature if it is going exceeding or going down below that range. In the Miocene period, this is, I'm talking geology, Miocene period, several lakhs of years back, it was the period of dinosaurs. Temperature at that time was 6 to 8 degrees centigrade more than today, around 20 to 22 degrees centigrade average. The reptiles only existed in most of the time, and human did not exist. This is exactly the worry today, that if temperature goes up in future beyond certain limit, it will in fact impact the very existence of humanity. The IPCC report, the sixth report that was released last year, brought out some very interesting things. I've been tracking, and I can say that with this claim that, since I've been connected with climate change issue for last 37 years. So I've seen those times when the IPCC report first to sixth were released, and there were different focus of these IPCC reports. The last report had a very unique outcome or the message. Now, one message is consistently seen last five IPCC reports. That is, there is a clear link between climate change and extreme events. But over a period, these IPCC reports have now re-emphasizing, reiterating, and making more emphasis on why we should worry about this thing. Another important thing that was brought out in the last report was the linkage of climate change with sustainability, the biodiversity loss, the resources, natural resources loss that is going to take place because of climate change. So these two things, the extreme events going to increase duration, frequency, and intensity, all the three. And why so? So the extreme events, they follow a kind of Gaussian curve. You see all changes that take place, or they seem to follow a normal Gaussian curve, where the extreme is beyond two standard deviations. When the climate change takes place, the entire Gaussian curve shifts to the right, and then the extreme have larger variance, and therefore, and this is many people who have, when people ask this question, and somebody asked me recently that when you are talking about global warming, why should we get extreme winter? So extreme winter and extreme summer both are part of this variance. And this variance you will be seen not in temperature alone, it will also be seen in the rainfall. And therefore, this is the kind of worry that we have. When you increase the extreme, the humans' adaptation capacity to withstand these changes is a problem. Anyway, I think I would go forward and say that there is a clear linkage between the warming and extreme taking place, and the we did recently, a climate vulnerability study, DST in partnership with other organizations that we worked out. And when we map the vulnerability in the country, we find that the eastern and northeastern part of the country have high climate vulnerability. And if you superimpose on this map, the India map of poverty and population density, you find they are exactly matching, which means the poorer the people, the higher is the vulnerability, which is very clear, understood by anybody. Now, this is the problem that India is going to face. The global changes are taking place, but the impact on India is going to be disproportionate. It's going to be more because of the higher population density and higher poverty in certain areas. So this is the, in fact, recent report that is from the World Bank has been saying that this poverty and sustainability, they have close linkage with each other, and therefore it is said that India works strongly in achieving SDG goals will help India eradicating poverty in times to come. The question is that when climate change is linked to sustainability, how do we achieve the resilience with the efforts that government does? Again, the resilience and adaptation have linkages. So higher the adaptive capacity, lower is the resilience, higher is the resilience capacity. So that linkage is also, and also adaptation is linked to the social and economic development. Yeah. So this is the chain that I'm going to come to an important issue, and I'll just take 2 more minutes and finish my deliberation. That I think it's very interesting that really in the India's total adaptation contribution investment is something like 2% of the GDP, and but if you see the losses due to climate change or disaster in India, it really comes to nearly 1% of the GDP. But better disaster management can help reducing this to nearly 10 to 20%. I think just one point that I wanted to mention, that the knowledge generators and knowledge producers, they need to be linked, and therefore NIDM has been doing a great job in disseminating the knowledge through training. I think it is high time that this is need to be also clubbed with knowledge production, that is research. In fact, globally there is a new stream has come up, that is the extreme event attribution is a new discipline where the study research in the extreme events and its impact on society. So my, in fact, suggestion will be that NIDM must also work in the area of research, so that research, the production of knowledge and production dissemination of knowledge can be linked. Last point, I would say that that this kind of event that we are having today is really very kind of first of its kind, and it will be great if we can continue these initiatives in future, and maybe we can have an annual event like this every year. All of us can put together, join hand, and then have contribute this kind of event. So that will be very good. Thank you so much for the having patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, before we move ahead with our presidential address, we would like to welcome and acknowledge the honorable presence of our special guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Forests, Cultural Affairs and Fisheries from the state of Maharashtra, Shri Sudhir Mungantiwar. Aapka hardik swagat hai, sir. We also welcome Dr. Shombi Sharp, UN Resident Coordinator, India. Warm welcome to you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 23rd of December 2005, the Government of India enacted the Disaster Management Act, which envisaged the creation of National Disaster Management Authority headed by the Honorable Prime Minister and the State Disaster Management Authorities, SDMAs, headed by the respective Honorable Chief Ministers, to spearhead the implement a holistic and integrated approach to disaster management in India. And today we are honored to have with us Shri Krishna S. Vatsa, Honorable Member NDMA, Government of India, for the presidential address. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sir as I request him for the inspirational address.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to all of you, all the distinguished guests, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Dennis Curry, Rodrigo Ofrin, my dear friend Taj Hassan, all the distinguished experts on the dais, participants, colleagues. It's wonderful to be here. I must thank Professor Anil Gupta. He's so persistent. He never lets go of me. And he has been so keen that I come here and address this session. Thank you very much. Part of our joy lies in the fact that the world is a circle, and we keep meeting the people time and again. Taj Hassan and I trained together 35 years back, and now after all the journey we have come together again. Dennis Curry and I worked together in Nepal after the earthquake. I interacted with Ashish Sinha in New York, Nairobi, Nepal, everywhere. Mr. Sudhir Mungantiwar, who is here, he used to harass me with his questions when he was a legislator in Maharashtra. All kinds of questions he would ask, and I would respond to them. So it's wonderful meeting all of you again, talking to all of you, and it's such a good thing. It's also a very timely discussion. We are emerging from the COVID. We are also making a new beginning. We also have these responsibilities associated with G20. We have a lot of resolutions to make. We have a lot of lessons from the COVID. So on the backdrop of all that, this discussion is extremely relevant and timely. Resilience, it's a very important issue. It's a lived reality. We have shown so much of resilience in coping with this crisis. I would like to speak a little more about resilience. Around in the last century or so, when we would read more about the conceptual issues of disaster management, we didn't hear much about resilience. We would talk more often about vulnerability and coping mechanisms and capacity. Mary C. Anderson, she wrote a great book, Rising from the Ashes, Development Strategies in Times of Disaster. This was a classic, in disaster management. And she would talk a lot about vulnerability and how the vulnerability can be addressed by capacity. No, we would never talk about resilience. And then after some time, resilience came and dominated our entire discussion, maybe, in the last 10 years or so. And it has replaced capacity, it has replaced many other terms. And there is a reason for that, why resilience has replaced all the other terms, and it has really established itself, because it's a much wider term. Capacity refers to our strengths, resources, but it is the resilience that drives the capacity, and that is why resilience is greater than capacity. Resilience is, as Dr. Gupta mentioned about the relationship between resilience and adaptation, it's a very important relationship. Adaptation is very, very important. We cope with the situation, we adapt to new situation, but it is the resilience that teaches us how to adapt. So, resilience actually leads to this adaptive capacity, and therefore, resilience denotes a large number of actions. How do we respond to a crisis? How do we absorb a crisis? How do we accommodate a crisis? How do we recover from the crisis? So it refers to a very wide range of responses, and that is why resilience has become extremely, extremely important. Now, all this is very much experienced during the last 2-3 years. And we have seen how resilience has come across both as an internal strength as well as an external system. Resilience is not just something that is available from our system as an organism, as a society. What is there? Okay. So as a society, as in our life, we see a lot of Okay. Good. Yeah. So, as a society, as in our personal life, we show a lot of resilience from the resources that exist within. And it's very, very important that whatever be the external support that is available, if you don't have that kind of a resilience within, you will not be able to utilize the external support. So resilience has both an internal aspect and as well as an external dimension. Resilience is social, resilience is cultural, resilience is financial, and all this actually come together when you are dealing with a crisis. And resilience also has a very important context of risk, and that is why risk and resilience are always invoked together. You demonstrate resilience when you are faced with risk. Most of the time, when you are faced with a crisis, you draw upon your resources, you draw upon the networks, you draw upon your savings, you draw upon all the facilities that the governments extend you to deal with that crisis, to deal with that risk. But all these conceptual issues related to resilience could not be understood if we are not able to relate it to how we actually respond to crises, how we, in our personal lives, how we have dealt with those things. And I would request all of you, we have gone through this extreme crisis. And if you read about the life stories of the people how they have dealt with the crisis. You would understand resilience much better. You read about a teacher, how when the school was closed, how they organized this online teaching. In the midst of so much of losses, in the midst of so much of deprivation, how when a woman lost the stitching job, how she adapted and she started stitching PPE, personal clothes, personal protective clothes, PPE, and she would be stitching at least 50, 60 PPEs in a day. Her husband loses the job of a truck driver and find that the factory in which she is stitching the PPEs also hires her husband who would deliver the PPEs to the cities. And there are n number of such stories how nurses have worked and how they have shown extreme courage, extreme resilience in dealing with the situation that existed in wards and hospitals in the midst of all their personal travels and crises. So we will be able to understand the resilience much better if you go through these lived stories, these personal accounts of how the people dealt with that. This is how actually these are the stories that also get mirrored at the societal level, how as a society we coped with the crisis. We have the public distribution system. At one time, a lot of people are very skeptical of public distribution system. It's a scheme which is known for its siphonages. It's a scheme known for black marketing, many things. But during the crisis, it is the PDS actually that ensured the food security. That ensured that all the people in the lower income group, when they struggled with food, they could access the food through the public distribution system. The cash transfer that happened during the COVID actually ensured that people have access to cash, ensured that people have access to liquidity. So all these things, all the social protection systems that existed, that worked quite well. And this really helped a lot of people. We do not know about how these people accessed these kind of assistance and survived the crisis. But the fact remains that the government provided a huge amount of assistance through various schemes and the people accessed them. So both at the societal level, at the governmental level, and at the personal level, we see a lot of very good examples of resilience. And I think we need to have the same kind of approach when we are dealing with the extreme events brought by the climate change today. What Dr. Gupta just said was absolutely right on the target. One of the central problems in the country is the regional disparity, that certain states are lagging behind, that the per capita income in eastern states is much, much behind than the per capita income in western states, and it very much correlates with the incidence and impact of disasters. The states like Bihar, Assam, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Odisha, they are faced with persistent disasters, and you will see that these are the states where the per capita income is much, much less than what we have in Gujarat and Maharashtra and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So we definitely see the impact of climate change. We definitely see more and more natural disasters and much greater losses. And what happens that when there are persistent losses, the people really start losing the employment, livelihood opportunities. People really lose their savings. People are not able to accumulate their savings. And as a result, people are living in poverty for a long, long time. And this really has become, one or two more minutes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So what is needed here? What is needed is that we make a very concerted effort to reduce our losses. And we have made a lot of investment to reduce our losses in recent past. I am happy to say that as the overall share of losses as a share of the GDP in India are going down. We are also, our mortality is going down. So all this has happened due to a greater investment in response and risk reduction. And we definitely need to keep investing more in risk reduction. It is the greater investment in risk reduction that would really bring us the sustainable gains. I'm also happy to say that we have set up the fund, we have set up the State Disaster Mitigation Fund. Through these funds, almost $6 billion, about 35,000 crores or more than 40,000 crores is available for investment in risk reduction, and it is a great opportunity for us to reduce our losses. We also need to pay much greater attention to infrastructure resilience, in the Government of India's effort through the CDRI to pay some of the, to build standards and to pay much greater attention to the application of codes. All these are very important, very remarkable efforts in the area of ensuring greater resilience. But all this can be accomplished only when we as a sector, disaster management as a sector expands. And this is our collective responsibility. This is the responsibility of the NDMA. This is the responsibility of NIDM. As a sector, disaster management must expand and must improve both in its knowledge, applications, in its research capacities, in its capacity for greater action in the field, which Taj Hassanji alluded. And we need to, this year, the G20 has given us a great opportunity. For the first time, we have a working group on DRR, and it's a great encouragement to us. And we must take advantage of this opportunity to expand this sector, to formalize the sector, to recognize all the people who are working in this. And I think this workshop today, this summit today, is also a very positive step in the direction of a strengthening DRR as a sector. We would definitely like to contribute to the Vision 2027 through the proceedings. We'll be very happy to work with the NIDM in developing and articulating this vision. Thank you very much for again inviting me, and I wish the summit a great success.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those words of inspiration. And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Dr. Ashish Chaturvedi, Head Environment, Energy and Resilience, UNDP India, to kindly close the proceedings of this session with words of thanks.
Thank you very much, and of course delighted to be here and partner with NIDM for this important event. It's a joy to listen to Mr. Vatsa all the time. We work very closely with the National Disaster Management Authority, and the technical content of the conference has begun with his speech, I must say. And of course, Dr. Gupta, Akhilesh Gupta, who's been sort of a pillar of climate action in this country, anchoring several missions of the National Action Plan on Climate Change, but also as the Secretary of SERB, kind of really pushing the agenda of scientific research, technical research on climate change. Of course, I'd like to thank all the people on the dais who've been sort of exceptionally sort of articulate and have kind of really pushed the conversation forward and set the scope for our discussions for the next 2 days, next 2.5 days. We're delighted to partner with the National Institute of Disaster Management for this important event. It's been an exciting journey, as Mr. said, that we've been kind of thinking about this event for a while, but pulling off such a sort of event of this magnitude and the kind of agenda that we've set for ourselves is sort of rather ambitious. And we've managed to put a lot of people who are in the audience. I've had the privilege of working with them for the last 15 years, not the kind of stories I have that Dr. Vatsa talked about. But there have been many, many interesting sort of collaborations. So delighted to have all of you who are real experts in your own right in various spaces. So delighted to have you here. And also working very closely with a lot of other partners like the GIZ, who's been sort of collaborating with the National Institute of Disaster Management, but also in setting up this event. And of course, last but not least, I'd like to thank Dr. Ranil Gupta and of course, the head of NIDM, Mr. Taj Hassan, who've been championing this. So we met a few months ago at the UN House, at the We the People Hall, where we convened all the UN agencies, but we also got a lot of other partners in the room, and that is where the event was seated. And it's fascinating that almost all the people who were there in that meeting are here with a bunch of other colleagues as well. So delighted to have you all here. And I'm promising you that it's going to be an exciting set of deliberations. This is a very multidisciplinary sort of agenda. We need scientists, we need policymakers, we need elected representatives who are here as well. We need, of course, people who work on the ground, practitioners, and we also need civil society organizations. And all of us are sitting here in this room, and if we can't set the agenda and come up with a proposal for Vision 2047, very few groups can. So let's join together to push this agenda. Thanks very much for coming here. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I once again take this opportunity to thank all our eminent and distinguished dignitaries on the dais for gracing this occasion. Thank you once again, sir. And may I request for a group photograph before we close this session? May I invite Mr. Kirtiman Awasthi also to kindly join on the stage for the group photograph? And I would request everyone to kindly remain seated as we straight away move to the next session. We will just take a minute to set up the top table for the next session. Thank you. And let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Thank you very much indeed for that wonderful and insightful launch session we had. Once again requesting everyone to remain seated as we arrange the top table for the next session. We straight away move to the next session, which is a keynote address session, the Shikhar Vyakhyan.